Thank you so much for being on the programme. Great to have you
My pleasure.
here. So what's your take on what we saw with the Oasis tickets over the weekend then?
Well, to be frank, I thought it was corporate Britain at its worst. You know, here you have a lot of fans, absolutely almost in love with Oasis, desperately want to go and see them. And they were, frankly, mistreated, ripped off. I can't pick any other word. I got called up by a few at the weekend, and let me just pick one out for you. She said she had to queue to get into the queue. I'm not quite sure what she meant by that. But then she ended up queuing for 6 hours, waiting to get to the head of the queue. She'd wanted to get a ticket whose surface price, as it were, the ticket price, was 135, something like that, something of that order. And when she got to the head of the queue, suddenly it was 355 or thereabouts. And then she tried to get it, and she couldn't even get the ticket at that point. And I saw at the weekend people like Ticketmaster and others saying, "Oh, well, this is supply and demand. This is the market." No, it's not. If you're locked into a queue and you wasted or spent 6 hours of your time, and then you get faced with a sudden doubling of the price, that's not a fair exchange. That's it's known as the sunk cost phenomenon in economics, but that's not a fair exchange.
So it's the transparency that's the issue, not so much the pricing.
Well, frankly,
more the whole experience.
Frankly, if they had said at the moment this lady went into the queue, it's going to be £350, I wouldn't. I wouldn't like it much, but I couldn't complain because that would be supply and demand in action. But this is not that. This is trickery. This is actually, and in my view, although it's technically legal, and clearly from what we're now hearing, it happens in all sorts of other places. It happens in other tickets, not just Oasis, and it's obviously happened before with other performers. So technically it's legal. But the people who drew up the rules never imagined, I think, that somebody would sit for 6 hours and then get the choice of wasting their 6 hours or paying hundreds of pounds more than they had expected to pay.
Interesting. And so what are you going to do about it? You're a politician. What are you going to do?
Well, I've already written to the Competition and Markets Authority to say to them, the rules are not working, basically, that this needs to be put right. People are not being given supply and demand. They're being put in a position where they can't escape the price, once they've wasted all that time. And my hope is that they will respond to that and do something about it. If they don't, then we'll have to pursue it further in Parliament.
So you think maybe there could be a legislation issue here, that actually it should be banned?
It could be secondary legislation, or it could even be a ruling by the CMA. I'm not sure the basis of this so-called dynamic pricing, right? I'm not sure whether it's strictly in the original primary legislation, whether it's a piece of secondary legislation, or whether it's an interpretation by the CMA. We don't know any of those things
And
yet.
what would you say to people who are like, look, you're Conservatives, you believe in free markets, this is free markets in action. And I know you've got to wait for a few hours, but no one's forcing you to spend that much money on a ticket.
Normally a free market doesn't tie you up in shackles, which is what this does. These are digital shackles, a digital locked-in queue. You can't get out, and that's not how free markets work. I mean, free markets are supposed to have rules, and the rules are there to make the transaction fair between both sides. Before this happened, there was lots of talk and criticism of people scalping. They buy a ticket, go off and sell it for 10 times what they paid for it, whatever. Well, this is just institutional scalping. Actually, it's no different. The size of the number may be different, but it's no different in terms of it's getting profit out of a place where you shouldn't get profit from.
Are you an Oasis fan yourself?
I'm not a big, but I don't tie. The idea that I could find 6 hours to queue online.
I did that.
It's another world.
For, about 4 hours online. So that
did you get a ticket?
Loser. I didn't. No. But although maybe that's a good thing given the price at the end.
Well, but were you one of these ones that was just shut off?
I just didn't get through.
Yeah.
Just never got through.
I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, in this day and age, what on earth are big companies doing, wasting everybody's time, and then nothing comes out at the end of it? That's even worse.
Now, while I've got you in the chair, I've got to ask you. Your party's on the hunt for a new leader. You decided who you want to back yet? Or?
No. No, I haven't. I mean, I was one of those who wanted to have a long campaign, longer than they're going to have, because there are a number of things I want out of a new leader. But the first one is the ability to hold the government to account. This government's already making lots of mistakes. I want to see an opposition leader who can make them pay for that, make them explain that, make the public understand it. Because unless we have that, we're not coming back. This is an academic exercise. And we haven't had enough time to see that yet. I mean, the first chance we have, I think, is tomorrow with the first hustings.
I mean, you're obviously in listening mode, and I totally get that. But is there anyone who has impressed you so far?
Well, not really. I mean, they've all said little bits of the right thing, but nobody's come along and said the full right thing. But also, this government is making quite a lot of mistakes on all sorts of fronts, on tax and regulation and so on. They've single-handedly dropped the British confidence, industrial confidence, in the last week or two. This is an open goal, actually, for would-be leaders, and they should be making more of it than they are.
What, so you're actually a bit disappointed then?
Well, so far, I mean, it may change, hopefully, in the next week. I mean, bear in mind, this is the first day back, you know. I mean, perhaps being a little unfair. But, you know, I want to see them score some goals in those open goals. And the person who scores the best goals is the person who'll get my vote.
OK, thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.